The difference between buyers who get deals and buyers who get ignored oftentimes comes down to one thing. It's how you communicate and how effective you are in your communication. Now, if you don't know how to frame your offer and follow up the right way, brokers honestly are not going to take you seriously, even if you've got the money and the motivation. And in today's episode, which is the third part of a 4-part series on how to work with brokers and how to get on-market storage deals, I'm going to give you the playbook that brokers actually respect when it comes to communication and offer strategy. Now, just as a quick recap, in the first episode, which I believe was episode 18, we talked about building trust and credibility with brokers. Last week, we talked about, or in the last episode, I should say, we talked about how brokers source deals and what they want in buyers. I shared some practical strategies and approach for you to be on the short list when they pick up a phone and call, and sometimes get access even to a deal before it hits the MLS, Crexi, LoopNet, etc. Now, by the way, as a side note, I say MLS because I just had a coaching call with somebody and helped them set up some keyword searches for when a storage facility incorrectly hits the multiple listing service. Obviously, MLS is for single family, triplexes, duplexes, things of that nature. But if you ever, as an aside, bonus tip, if you ever come across a storage facility on the MLS, pick up the phone and call, because that is a residential agent that didn't know to put the property on Crexi and LoopNet. But I digress. So let me just share with you a quick story, an example of early on in my journey, how I got beat out on a deal, not necessarily because of the price, but because another buyer communicated better and more effectively with the broker. Essentially, they did a better job of following up over a period of time, building trust, establishing credibility. And I was super green about 5 years ago when I started in storage. And I remember I would send an email with my price and terms, but I didn't pick up the phone and call to justify or explain my offer. I was lazy in my approach. And then after the fact, I ended up communicating with the broker when I realized that it had gone under contract. And I said, hey, Mr. Broker, did you get my email? Because I offered, and I think my offer was like in the ballpark of what I ended up learning it was under contract for. And he goes to me, yeah, I got it, Alex, but decided that I was going to work with another buyer. And I said, hey, listen, I've been in the real estate space a long time. I'm transitioning into storage now. I'm looking for my first deal. Can you just give me some feedback? And he said, hey, Alex, I always suggest that when you send an offer, don't just blindly send the offer, but send a thoughtful email response with that offer, or even better, pick up the phone. And I had an aha. And it was interesting to me because it was like a bucket of cold water. I didn't necessarily need that broker to tell me that, because when he told me, it sounded so obvious. And yet I still see so many people making that mistake, where they just blindly send an offer and then they might follow up in 48 or 72 hours. And they're going about it all wrong. In fact, I had David Perleshi come on from Franklin Street into our Storage Wins community. And he's one of the top brokers in the country. And one of the biggest insights he shared with us, and the way that he framed it was so interesting. I'm probably going to do a poor job but let me just communicate to you, let me give you the punchline, essentially. He said, one of our members asked a question like, hey, David, how do we approach a broker if, let's say, a broker's asking 1.5 million for a storage facility and our offer's like 800 or 900? It's like not half, but it's like way off. And the member said, we shouldn't bother sending that offer, right? And David was like, wrong. You want to send the offer, but don't just send the offer. And he said exactly what that broker told me when I first got into storage. He said, you want to put together a thoughtful email response. You want to follow up with a phone call and explain to the broker how you got to that number, right? Educate them on how you arrived there. And that could be because you're trying to hit a particular metric, like a cash on cash return or whatever the case might be, but just explain how you structured the offer and how you ultimately got there. That is so, so important. In fact, if you got nothing else out of this particular video, and it gives you the motivation and the encouragement to just send more offers and then follow it up with a phone call, reach back out to me in about 12 months and let me know how that's positively impacted your business, your family, and so on. You are going to get more deals when you send more offers. Just don't be lazy about it. Follow up with a phone call, right? Not only does that you help explain, but they're going to appreciate it even if it's not the offer they're looking for. Here's what you have to understand. When mom and pop owners hire these brokers and a broker doesn't deliver offers, right? When they don't get offers and present offers to the storage owner, it can affect the broker and it could start to put a little bit of a strain on the relationship. How do I know? Well, I've been there. Like, I've been the storage owner. I have now sold, I've wholesaled several facilities, but I recently, as of the last 12 months, I've sold 80,000 square feet of storage across 2 facilities. And I remember there was a period where our broker wasn't really sending us offers. And I was the one to pick up the phone and said, hey, what's going on here? And it sometimes makes the owner feel like there's a lack of activity when there's not offers coming in. And by the way, we have an amazing broker, so much so that I'm working with her on another deal now. And she sent us a lot of offers, but we just hit a stretch where there wasn't a lot of activity. And so always keep the line of communications open with brokers, whether you're a buyer or you're an actual seller, okay? But really, really important that you communicate early and often, all right? Now, understand that first impressions matter. The initial phone call or an email to a broker can really set the tone. You want to keep it professional, but be yourself, right? Be clear, concise, communicate with confidence. Like I talked about in the previous show, always position yourself as somebody who is ready, willing, and able. Communicate as someone who's done their homework and is ready to follow through with the right opportunity. Because let me tell you something, many times it's not just about going with the highest price. In fact, I have personally bought numerous I'll just say real estate in general, probably hundreds of houses where I wasn't the highest offer, but because I built a relationship, trust, credibility, I communicated with confidence. I've essentially done everything I've shared with you over the last couple of episodes. They wanted to work with me. Why? Because I gave them certainty. That's one of the things, it's a human need Tony Robbins talks about a lot. It's humans, many of them feel the need to feel that certainty. And so you as a potential buyer, whether you're working with a broker or storage owner, give them that certainty that if you can execute at the right price and or terms, that you can see the deal through and ultimately get it closed. Right now, some other things which I've talked about, but I think it's worth highlighting, spell out exactly what you want, right? Size, location, returns you're targeting, if it's a value add deal or not. In other words, are you looking to raise the rents, implement some marketing, some automation, increase the value of the facility, get occupancy up? Are you open to something that requires what we call CapEx, capital expenditures? And essentially, you got to put a lot of money into the facility. Maybe you have to, replace the gate and doors and all this kind of stuff, the roof, right? That could be what we call a heavy value add. I remember when I got into storage, I wasn't interested in a heavy value add. I wanted a light lift, and I communicated that to every broker I spoke with. So we talked about the offer framing, not just throwing out numbers. Don't make the mistake I made about 4.5, 5 years ago when I got into this business, but explain your logic. Explain how you arrived at that number. And, you can use language like, hey, look, Mr. Broker, I realize that this offer is far below what you're asking. And let me preface that by saying that sometimes I'll even ask brokers, I'll say, hey, Mr. Broker, I understand you're asking this. I don't know if your seller is flexible at all, but would it even make sense for me to put an offer in writing and send it to you if I wasn't able to get in the ballpark of what you're looking for? Right? If I'm going to be a ways off, would it make sense to put it in writing and put the ball in the broker's court? Many times I hear, yeah, Alex, put it in writing. I don't know if it's going to work, but put it in writing. And I have heard countless stories of people buying storage facilities far below the list price because they had the courage to send in an offer and back it up with a phone call. I have a friend of mine who's currently working on a deal that he's getting it hundreds of thousands of dollars below the list price because he just sent the offer in. Okay, so do that. Send the offer. It shows that you're serious. You're not just it's not just hot air. You're not just blowing smoke, but you're willing to take the time and put together what we call an LOI, a letter of intent. It's a simple 1 or 2 page document that says who the buyer is, who the seller, and you're just outlining the broad strokes of your offer and your terms. Now, you also want to follow up without being annoying. Like I mentioned in the previous one, you want to be the welcome guest, not the annoying pest. Most buyers, the pendulum swings so far the other way that they never follow up, right? Or they follow up wrong. They're just annoying and they're blowing up the broker. Like nobody wants that. Be thoughtful, be respectful of their time, add value, by the way. Sometimes how can you add value? Sometimes it's a referral. Hey, Mr. Broker, look, I know you have this listing. It didn't work for me, and I realized our offer was going to be way off, and you said it didn't make sense to put an offer in writing. But let me connect you with a few other people who, if it doesn't work out on this one, they might be a buyer in the future. Like, that is a way to add value. So think about how you can contribute to that person, right? Maybe it's a shout out on your social media where it takes you 2-3 minutes, but it could go a long way. Why? Because it's a separator. These are the types of things that other people aren't willing to do, and brokers are going to notice the difference. When it comes to negotiating with brokers, don't beat up the deal. Don't destroy the deal of how crappy it is and this and this and this, and you're just beating it up, right? But just communicate and say, hey, listen, here are some concerns I have, X, Y, Z. I see the roof, it's the roof is 18, 19, 20 years old. It's probably going to need a new roof, and I have to factor that into my numbers. Is the seller flexible on price or terms in order for us to try to see if we can bridge this? And by the way, if we can't, no worries, like we'll connect in the next one. You kind of see how I'm like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm not chasing the opportunity, but I'm making them lean into me. And then lastly, you want to, like we mentioned, build a reputation of performance. Somebody who closes, who gets things done. Even one deal under your belt can completely put you in a different category forever. And then tie it back if you're a part of our Storage Wins community, or if you're a part of a community of like-minded people and you're partnered with a group like Storage Wins, mention it, because believe me, it adds credibility. It is huge. So look, here's the bottom line. If you can communicate clearly, follow up with a purpose, frame your offers with confidence, right? Don't just send an offer and then not follow up, but reach out to them, explain how you got there. Brokers are going to see you as the real deal. And if you want to go deeper and take this a step further and actually put yourself in a position where you can have brokers sending you deals so you're on a short list, understand how to find off-market opportunities and just storage deals in general, I'll invite you for a quick conversation, storagewins.com. And that's where we roll up our sleeves and really help you take what we share on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. We give you a roadmap and we hold you accountable step by step by step, all the way through from zero to owning your first facility. So look, if you've enjoyed this 3-part series so far, then you're definitely going to want to plug in for the finale, the anchor, the one that's going to put it all together, where we're going to talk about a lot of common mistakes people make, how you can avoid them, and how you can start building meaningful relationships with brokers and have them sending you opportunities. So now you have off-market strategies, you have on-market strategies, and now you're building out a lead generation system, an acquisition system, so that you can eventually buy your first or next storage facility to generate cash flow, build wealth, and just experience more freedom, because that's what this business can do for you. It allows you to experience more freedom so you can do the things that fill you up and give you energy, and you're not constantly clocking in, clocking out, so to speak, and then checking out. We only get one shot at this thing called life. So let's maximize it. Let's take full advantage. And if you're not subscribed to the Storage Wins podcast, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure that you do that so you get notified every single week with fresh content and new episodes. I'll connect with you on the next one.